Dangerously close.
This episode was brought to you by William Mitchell Audio. Are you tired of all your audio projects sounding like this? When you'd rather have them sound like this? Then go to WilliamMitchellAudio.com.
My guest today is Avanti Centrae. Avanti is an international best-selling and 9-time award-winning author who blends intrigue, history, science, and mystery into non-stop action thrillers. What's up, Avanti?
Hey, Doug. Thanks so much for having me. I love your podcast.
Thank you so much. Oh, I was before I hit record. I was just telling you, I just got back in town, and just as to show you how much I have been really enjoying reading your book. I had a flight from Seattle back to Nashville, and so that's like on the way back it's faster, so it's like only like 4 hours. And it was like, and I've been reading your book, so I was so excited. I was like, all right, like this is gonna make this flight just breeze by, and I was so happy. And then these ladies a few rows back decided to get like super crunk, and they were so loud. And I'm usually like, I can focus, like I can like deal with like a crying baby, like, because it's that's more like just a sound that's just kind of like it'll eventually tones out. But anyway, I will never ever forgive those women for not letting me read your book on the plane, because I was so into it. I was at such a crucial point too. It was a very exciting point in the book, and anyway, I just wanted to use that as an example of how much I've been enjoying reading your book. Is that I will hold a lifetime vendetta against the drunk ladies on the plane who wouldn't let anybody chill. I mean, I didn't hear. I mean, but once I gave up on the book, I just put my headphones in and just listened to music. So it was still a pleasant flight, but.
Yeah, well, hopefully, you found other times to take a look at it, and they'll get theirs. They'll be trying to focus on something else someday, and they won't be able to do that.
Oh yeah, and I was already most of the way before I got on that plane. I thought I was going to finish on the plane, but that's good, because sometimes when I'm interviewing an author, I'm always so worried I'm going to spoil an ending just somehow. So fortunately. Even I don't know how this ends yet, and I can't. I will find out actually probably tonight when I sit down and finish reading this book. So,
there's some surprises there at the end.
Would you even? I know that this is a thriller, but also I feel like it's a mystery, and that's one of the things I'm like. That's why like every chapter that ends, I'm like, oh man, I got to go again. Like I got to get another one in, because the mystery cliffhanger.
Oh yeah, I love writing those cliffhangers, throwing them in. I like, short punchy chapters and a lot going on, and gotta keep the readers turning the pages. That's a lot of fun.
Do you feel like does it annoy you when people compare your work to like other stuff that like other types of?
Not at all.
Oh, because I was gonna say, like,
what's it remind you of?
Growing up, the Indiana Jones movies were like probably in my top favorite movies, like all three of them, the whole trilogy. I would watch them over and over and over and over and over again. And I feel like there's some Indiana Jones in here. But of course,
I'm a child of the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s. So yeah, totally influenced by Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider. And I feel like there's a little Mission Impossible in there too.
Oh yeah, I caught that. Even maybe some Born Identity when there's some action, when there's some fighting. But also there's like a ton of historical stuff in here. That's so. Man, I didn't even mention the title of the book you've written several books, and this is Cleopatra's Vendetta. And there's some really cool stuff. This made me go back and do just a little more Cleopatra research, because I'd forgotten so much. And also I liked when you're in the book, you're talking about like how she's so misrepresented in so many ways.
Yeah.
So
so many ways.
I was gonna ask you, like, do you consider Cleopatra to be one of the first rulers to use like more sophisticated public relations tactics?
At During her time, I think both her and the Romans were using sophisticated PR tactics. One could call them propaganda tactics, and we delve into that in the book. To do research for this novel, I read a couple of biographies, and one of them was by Stacy Schiff, and she highlighted that the Romans had used numerous leaflets, and they've spread these leaflets all over town calling Cleopatra and Mark Antony, harlots and evil, and they made statues ooze blood. And so you have on one side, Octavian, who was Cleopatra and Mark Antony's mortal enemy, using these leaflets to build up the army. And on the other side, you had Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and I'm not sure, in my historical research, I didn't really come across how good they were at public relations and propaganda, but the other side certainly was, and one could make an argument that that's how they lost the war, because Octavian, who was this morose little short man who wore lifts in his heels, he was successful at raising a bigger army, and I think it cost him.
And so Octavian, he's the adopted son of Julius Caesar, right? He's not,
or nephew. I think he might have been like the grandnephew, and he was the surprise heir.
Yeah, there's was it the triumvirate? So after Julius Caesar was also, I guess people, so just to kind of clarify for anybody that's forgotten their Cleopatra history, Cleopatra had a son with Julius Caesar named Caesarion, right. And then Julius Caesar returns to Rome. He's betrayed, like we all know from Shakespeare. Brutus stabs him, all that.
The Ides of March, yeah.
And so what I don't remember the third guy of the triumvirate. I know there was Octavian, who was, he was Caesar's heir. He was but he wasn't a direct lineage son. There's Mark Antony. He was a general. So I don't know, kind of a Game of Thrones thing happening with all these guys.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, they stabbed Julius Caesar and didn't even try to hide it, right? They ran through the streets of Rome with blood on their white togas. I forget what they shouted, but, something, death to Julius Caesar.
I think that didn't work out. So that was the one common when Mark Antony and Octavian were still allies. Wasn't that their the main thing they had in common is they wanted to avenge the death of Julius Caesar. Am I correct?
Well, and Mark Antony even, I think, married Octavian's sister.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. That's another reason why Octavian
blew
was
her
so
off
pissed
for Cleopatra. Yeah, talk about a soap opera.
Because that's what, what happened. He married. Her name was Octavia, right? Like they had almost the same name, I think. It was like Octavia and Octavian, like. Yeah. They didn't have a lot of names back then. Everybody had almost the exact same name. But and so first he just kind of like abandoned her to go live in Alexandria with Cleopatra, and then later on fully divorced her and married Cleopatra, right? Were they, I think,
I don't remember those details. I was more focused on kind of some of the interesting details about Cleopatra that would tie into a thriller.
Oh yeah,
you're probably right. Yeah.
Well, honestly, I'm kind of like, there's a little bit of a fog where I can't remember what I learned from your book or what I learned like on my side research, being like, oh, what's because that naval battle that you start the book with the naval battle, and that's something I was really interested in too. That was because I guess Cleopatra and Mark Antony, they broke from Rome. They were going to start a Egyptian Roman dynasty of their own, and Octavian was able to get the whole Roman army behind him, right?
Right. There was a civil war going on between Octavian and Mark Antony, and it was the propaganda that Octavian used helped him really build that army. And so basically this story kind of takes off from there, with Cleopatra trying to avenge herself with the fictional idea that Octavian headed a cult that still survives to this day.
Yeah, the
So
sons
that's
of
kind of
Adam.
the premise. Yeah, that's sort of the premise behind the novel, is she's trying to avenge herself. And Tim and Angie Stryker get kind of caught up in that. But yeah, it was so much fun researching Cleopatra. She was one of the first to put her image on coins. Her city had coin-operated vending machines, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
2,000 years ago. So Alexandria was, it was sort of the New York of the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
very advanced, far more so than Rome. Julius Caesar adopted the Egyptian calendars. So we still live, with July and August. We still live with some of what what Julius and Octavian decided to take advantage of, Egyptians' technology at the time.
That was actually
12-month calendar.
something that I do specifically remember that I did learn from your book and not from elsewhere, was that Alexandria was high tech, or for the time it was high tech. And yeah, I guess probably the most impressive thing is that they had coin operated vending machines. But would you say they had escalators or elevators?
Yeah, some sort of, automatic moving treadmill type things.
Like people movers, like at the airport.
Yeah, people movers.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the main street was wide enough to hold like 8 chariots abreast, something like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
crazy.
it must have been just an amazing city. And so after that naval battle, Cleopatra and Mark Antony kind of ran back there with their tails between their legs, knowing that Octavian was going to come and take over. So they had like 8 months to figure out, oh crap, what do we do when he comes to our shores? Because it seems like their armies were pretty decimated at that point. And sure enough, it sounds like the instant Octavian showed up on their shores, it wasn't even really a battle. So that's why you've got the classic scene of Mark Antony trying to commit suicide and failing, and Cleopatra going into this mausoleum. So she had 8 months to build this mausoleum and treasury as her last stand, and ended up getting arrested and taken there under house arrest. So she had quite a bit of time to plan for her suicide. And this idea of dying by the snake, historians have argued about for centuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you brought that up, that was one of the things that I thought, when we talk about Alexandria being more advanced technologically than Rome, even though I guess Rome was a very militarized city state, and that's that's where their power came from, was the military. But
right.
Alexandria and Egypt just had a lot of, they were very advanced, like further advanced in other ways. And one of the ones that I thought was just kind of, if you think, it's the way that Mark Antony decides to kill himself, is he like wedges his sword in like between a couple of rocks on the ground and then falls onto it. Like that's how he chose to try and kill himself, and it didn't work like immediately. So basically he fell on a sword and then took like 2 days to die, which is such a
horrible. Yeah.
The worst way to. And then of course Cleopatra, I don't
hold
know.
My beer. Yeah.
Hold up.
Let me show you how to kill yourself.
I totally can believe that she. I mean, because I know that there's some things that said that like she had worked with poisons. Maybe she knew and she might have poisoned herself. But I do think it's like way cooler to say that she killed herself with a cobra. It's a better myth. And
what's interesting to me is that if we look at some of what was culturally going on at the time, right? You had the cobra, which for I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 years in Egypt was a sign of divinity, right? It was the pharaohs and the cobra, and the snake was revered. Egypt was very much an agricultural center. That's, I think, where all their money came from, because they had learned how to grow food with the Nile's rise and fall and the rich soil that they had. And so snakes kept rats out of the storeroom and could transform themselves, lose their skin and all that. So snakes were, the bomb. And then on the other side, you've got the Judeo-Christian myth of Adam and Eve, right? Where the snake is evil. And the snake tempts Eve to, eat of the fruit, and so you've got this this culture war with the snake. And is the snake good or bad, right? And so I think that was a pivotal time in that whole thing. And so it's interesting to me, and we don't really learn until the end of the story exactly why in my fictional world Cleopatra chose to die the way she did. But it's all fun supposition.
And it's wild that you brought that up. That so I mean, obviously snakes super important in this culture. Isis, the god that Cleopatra most identifies with, and she often like dresses herself as Isis, but Isis is also often depicted as a snake, right? Or half a snake.
Oh yeah. Lots of iconography about, half people, half snakes. Isis has snakes around her arms, and throughout the book this becomes important. But yeah, so you've got the cool snake, with the Egyptians, right? And then on the other side you've got the Romans, who are like, oh yeah, snakes are bad. Right, exactly. And how much of that was, trying to overthrow the pagan culture of the Egyptians? How much of that was trying to gain control? Because we've seen throughout history how religions have taken over the myths of the indigenous peoples, right? So so how much of that snake myth was to abscond with the Egyptian?
So I believe like she would have died in like 30 BC, right? So so I mean, like the Roman Empire would have Christianized, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not that long after.
Exactly. So she died 30 years before the birth of Christ. So yeah, kind of right on the heels of that. But you had Moses, I think, was 1,500 years before the time of Christ, something like that. So you had that, the whole idea of one God, the monotheistic ideas had been around for quite some time at that point.
So so the story of Adam and Eve is, that's much older. Was that like a millennia older than Christ?
Right. Exactly.
I promise I'm not going to just only talk to you about Cleopatra, but I did want to just talk about another thing, and just because you bring it up, it's when
all good.
I think Sam is the name of the character who brings up an important point. Samantha.
Yep, Sam.
Where it's kind of like I mean, it's almost a propaganda thing in and of itself, the way that the Roman historians depict Cleopatra. I don't know if it's deliberate or if maybe here. I just I think I wrote a question. Oh, it's right here. Yeah, so so I don't have to just try and pull that out of my head. I was just saying that Roman historians really tried to pigeonhole Cleopatra as just a wily seductress and not give her credit for being masterful at statecraft. And in your opinion, I was just going to wonder, like, do you think that's just like ancient misogyny? Like maybe these guys just they can't, like, because they have such a their culture is so kind of anti-woman in Rome that's just how they truly perceive it to be? Or do you think it was deliberate propaganda to try to make Cleopatra seem lesser than she was?
I think it was probably a little bit of both. For our listeners, one of the interesting things that I came across while I was researching this novel was that Romans at the time would kill their second-born daughters. So the firstborn daughters would live, but the second-born daughters they would kill. And it could be because as you mentioned, they were a very militarized society, but they also were a barefoot and pregnant kind of culture where they wanted their women just to be breeding children. And Egypt was not at all like that. Egypt, women owned property and businesses and could divorce their husbands if their husbands beat them, that sort of thing. So you had this interesting clash of cultures. So when you think about, all right, so Octavian ruled for over 40 years after he defeated Cleopatra and Mark Antony. And I think he probably, wanted to take over Egypt. And usually when a ruler conquers a nation, the first thing they do is they, just like when a new CEO comes in, right? You have to change things. You have to make the old CEO look bad. You have to make the old ruler or the old king or the old pharaoh look bad. And so it was probably part of just that common statecraft of, chest thumping, and I'm the new guy in town, and, I'm great and she was crap. But there could have also been some we want to impose our cultural will on the Egyptians as well, because the Romans were, they were expanding, taking over the world, right?
Yeah.
So, that often happens as well, even today. I mean, look at what the Russians are doing with Ukraine. They're kidnapping Ukrainian children. So this concept of trying to make the conquered people part of your culture, I think the Romans did as well. And so it just, their culture was just far more misogynistic than the Egyptians.
Yeah, and I, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, I believe Octavian might have been the first, when Rome truly became imperial, meaning they had emperors and it became less democratic. I think that started with Octavian, and then from there on, in Egypt, they called the emperors of Rome the Roman pharaohs.
Sounds right to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah,
it
would have been a fascinating time to be alive. Yeah.
Okay, I promise this is the this is the end of me and just diving into this kind of historical period. But I had to just there's another conversation in the book, and that's why I kind of had this question popped into my head. I know you've already answered a lot of it, but if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe just
not at all
take one more swing just at this little war between Cleopatra with Mark Antony versus Octavian. And you were just discussing the how they were heavily using militarized propaganda. And I know you said leaflets was a major tool, but what would it look like in that time period? Before we kind of shift to modern times, because I guess this is the seeds. Now we've got like you said, Russian troll farms, getting on our social media,
we do, yeah.
But I mean, in so many ways you can draw parallels, right?
Oh, absolutely. Tons of parallels. And that was one of the neat parts about writing this book, was I was able to throw in the history of propaganda, in the hopes that, because it is still so much a part of what we deal with every day. And my hope is that their eyes will be a little bit opened to how propaganda has been used for thousands of years, and how people are trying to sway our opinions every day, and how we just need to think for ourselves and do our own research. To answer your question about what it would have looked like back in the day, I believe they had both leaflets and posters, right? So kind of what we might have had 40, 50 years ago, where, you were walking down the street and somebody handed you a trifold pamphlet, hey,
Yeah.
check out Jehovah's Witnesses, or, go to this concert.
I still get those.
It's open enrollment or whatever, here's a pamphlet about this, and then, poster on the wall, coming soon, Depeche Mode. So I think it probably would have been both of those kinds of things. But they also, one of the other visuals that really stuck with me was they made statues bleed. So in Greece, for instance, there were statues of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and somehow they made them bleed. So I don't know if they just painted, blood coming out of their eyes, or quite how they would have done that. But yeah, they pulled out all the stops to make Cleopatra and Mark Antony look bad.
This is totally off topic, but you just remind, in Seattle, there's a statue of Joseph Stalin that they just purchased from Russia, that because like they didn't really want it anymore. But so many people really do not like Joseph Stalin. So someone just took a bucket of red paint and dipped his hands in it. So his hands are dipped in blood. And no one has done it. I think it's been left that way for years.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite landmarks of that city.
Oh, he was a killer.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he gets a lot of credit, and especially the way we're taught here in the U.S. because the thing is, Russia was our ally in World War II, but I mean, he wanted to be allies with Hitler. That was his goal, and it was just that Hitler was far more ambitious and decided to invade, Russia and break their peace treaty. So who knows what could have happened if Hitler hadn't done that?
Yeah,
those guys. I mean, we'd all be speaking German.
I'm glad we're speaking English.
I want to say that we kind of started going down this road, but jumping ahead to modern warfare, you talk about deepfake technology and AI generated social media accounts. What do you think is currently the most powerful weapon in modern propaganda warfare?
That's a great question. I have a background in technology, actually a computer degree from Purdue, and it's been really fascinating to see how technology has changed. I'm not going to say when I got my degree, but it's been a decade or so. And so, the rise of the internet has been both a blessing and a curse, right? We now have the ability to research anything. We can do these kind of podcasts. Entertainment is at our fingertips, but it is also super easy for like you said, those Russian trolls to spin up fake accounts. And in this story, they're doing that. The Sons of Adam are spinning up fake accounts. And just on Twitter yesterday, I saw an article about how AI personas are taking over the world. It's so easy now to create a false persona that even with those of us who enjoy spy novels, we're aware that there's people in the background that create legends for our heroes, and Timothy Stryker and his team of misfits are no exception. It used to be that they had to create the false passport and perhaps the schooling and the like. Nowadays you can have a hacker spinning up a false persona with false LinkedIn accounts and false social media accounts, and you can go through and gosh, I saw an example of a company whose the About Us page, every person on there was not a person. They were an AI persona that interacted. In the story, the personas, they write news stories. They blog. In Twitter yesterday, I saw that they're answering questions like, on answer.com or whatever. So I think that this poses humans a real challenge with what to believe. And I think we're having a crisis. Back in the day, you had laws against yellow journalism, and in the 80s, a lot of those laws expired. And so there's no easy way to combat false information. And so that's falling on the social platforms to combat. And that makes it difficult for the average person to know what to believe, because
by yellow journalism, you mean disinformation disguised as news.
Right. Yes, exactly. And so we have a lot of that happening today. And so you've got so many people that don't know or are told that, traditional media is all lies. So they believe everything that's in alternative media. You've got so much information that people don't know what to trust. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have right now. And so I think that what we need to start teaching in school is teaching people how to check sources,
Yeah.
And verify the information. And we need to teach people to listen to their gut. If something sounds too outlandish, drinking the blood of children, for instance, perhaps it's too outlandish,
who was that? Laura Logan that just got that.
Right.
She managed to get banned from Newsmax. It's practically
Right.
impossible to do, but she
Right.
did it. They, I guess, draw the line at claiming that the government officials are drinking the blood of children I don't want to be immortal. I don't fucking know. But do you mind if I this is not warfare related, but it is just like my personal experience with just a daily thing. And I, on my Instagram for this podcast, I block like up to 20 like fake AI generated accounts or bot accounts a day. It's unbelievable how many of those I block, but I think some still slip through because I don't want to block someone who's actually a real person who really is a listener. That so.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're saying, some of them that's the thing where you're just like, do you go with your gut? Is this a fake account? But a lot of times it's like, this looks like a real person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the easiest ones for me to spot is if they're trying to sell me Bitcoin or cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
easy as hell to block. And I mean, I don't, as soon as I see the word Forex in their bio, block. And same thing with like people that are like, if it says in their bio like single, like that's also that they're fake. But
right.
I don't know. I know that was a tangent, but I just feel like just being like a completely, I'm not like an important person like in the government that needs to be swayed.
We're
but
all
even
struggling
I'm being
with it.
yeah.
You, me, everybody out there, and that's why I felt like this book was timely, because it was trying to address some of that history. So when you think about propaganda it was used it was old even in Cleopatra's time, right? And Ray and another character in the novel talk about how old propaganda was and how it was used in the Civil War, the Revolution, World War I and World War II. It was used heavily, and the United States uses it, right? So it's not like it's just used by Eastern Bloc countries. The US has used it. Advertisers use it, right? I mean, marketing. I think there's a difference between marketing and propaganda, right? With marketing, you're sharing, hey, I have this product, you might like it. With propaganda, you're, hey, my enemies drink the blood of children. So outright lies and disinformation. And but it is pretty interesting to think about how bombarded we are with all of this information, much of which is false. And during an election cycle, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh God, it's exhausting. Although I will say, as a counterpoint to like much or most, if not most, of propaganda is exaggerations or outright lies. I will say there are times too where propaganda can actually just use truth. But that's my main example. The thing that popped into my mind is in World War II, Buffalo Soldiers, and what I mean is like the black platoons that were being segregated from the white platoons, often being sent on more dangerous missions. The same thing was happening in Vietnam too, but there were propaganda, and I think obviously it happened in both those wars, but like the Germans had someone who spoke English. I think it might have been a woman, and they would broadcast it extremely loud, or it would come through the radio, and they would be talking to the U.S. troops that were in these segregated black platoons, and they were like, "Hey, you're being why are you fighting for this country that treats you this poorly? You're not even equal as a soldier. And in that case, that propaganda is they were absolutely right. And it probably swayed some people. I think if it's so hard to put yourself in that position, but it would be hard for you not to think, what, this Nazi propagandist is telling me the truth. Like I am being treated as a second-class citizen in my own country. I'm being treated as a second-class soldier in my own army. Why am I fighting for these people? So that is, once again, a huge tangent, but I was just to say that sometimes propaganda can be true.
Yeah. Or it can take part of the truth, like even statistics, can pull out pieces of the data. And that's why it's so important, whether it's in people's, workplace or social life or whatever, that they try to look at the big picture, that they try to get all the information, that they try to get information from multiple sources. And, when I'm researching a novel, I try to do the same thing, right? And so I think that's the best defense that each of us has against propaganda. But what do you think? Besides blocking, your strategy to block accounts that have single in them, what else do you do to combat the misinformation that's coming your way on a daily basis?
Well, the majority of news sources that I use, I trust almost implicitly. And it's because like a lot of where I get my news, it's been digested, so it's not like I do try to get a lot of raw news as well when I can, like AP and stuff like that. But there's also just people that I find to be like intellectually like on point. They're really good at breaking things down, and then once it's gone through them, I feel like that gives me an opportunity. Like once it's been filtered through someone who I already respect as intellectually capable of understanding what they're reading, and then when it comes then to me, I feel like I have a better opportunity to do the same. And then of course I don't consume my media from one source or two sources or three sources. I try to do my best to be, to get whatever variety is available to me. And of course, as an American, it's as important whenever you can possibly can to read foreign news, because oftentimes you're going to get the truth from someone who's not obligated to maybe obfuscate the truth a little bit.
Right. Yeah. The International Herald, when I was traveling, I got to travel quite a bit in the 80s, and a lot of that has inspired my writing. And, I remember reading the International Herald quite a bit when I was tromping about Europe and Central America, etc. That was a great source at the time. So those are clever suggestions for your listeners. I like it.
I'll give that a shot. I had a Vice reporter on, he is no longer a Vice reporter. He has since retired from Vice, but I like to, also just get a lot of like news sources like that, the people that just really get out there, go weird, and it's difficult in a time like this where, the Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos.
Right.
Fairly soon, Twitter will be owned by Elon Musk. Anything that's owned by Rupert Murdoch, I refuse to even touch. So this happens to me a lot on Twitter, where people that are just awful people will try to make a point to me by sending me an article from the New York Post, and I'm like, I'm not going to read this. Just shut the fuck up. Or sending me a 27-minute YouTube, and they're like, do your research, and I'm like, this is not research. This is, first of all, a moron made this YouTube video to begin with. You're 10 times the moron for watching it and believing it, and I'm not going to waste my precious time in my life.
Right.
So I mean, I guess maybe to a certain extent, just being a little bit cynical is a good defense.
I think it is. Yeah.
Do you mind if I hit you with an? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I used to play basketball, and the best defense was a good offense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
assume they're lying to you. You know what? I do that a lot with I'm a serious like bicycle dude. I love riding my bike. I ride in cities.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, I'm riding my bike from Nashville to New Orleans.
Wow.
One of my keys, I've been hit by cars. It's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Knock on wood. I've never been, severely injured that way. But one of my things, what I do, when I'm in a city, especially like a very like bike unfriendly city, like the city I live in is very bike unfriendly. And a lot of these, rednecks and these trucks with the truck nuts, they want to kill you, they don't believe they should share the road with you. And so what I go out with the mind frame that every single vehicle, I don't think of it as a person. I don't think of that, I don't think of personal. I just think of every single vehicle as something that wants to kill me. It arcs toward that rather than trusting anyone to do the right thing. And that keeps me from getting hurt.
I drove a motorcycle for a while too. So I love road biking as well. And back when I was in my 20s, I got a motorcycle license, and I lived in LA, and it was just impossible to get around in a car. So I got a motorcycle and had the same philosophy, right? That every car out there might not see me, so it might not be intentional that they want to kill me, but they may not see me. And so, yeah, I think that kind of strategy serves one well.
It's not paranoia if it's true, or I mean, wait, that's how I guess. It's what is it like? You might be paranoid, but it could also be true. I don't know. There's a saying that I'm not recalling it.
Uh-huh.
But hey man, sometimes paranoia might be that is the best strategy. Hey, do you mind if I hit you with another tech question?
Not at all.
So okay, I know I'm gonna piss off a lot of people by saying this because it was so popular, but I literally couldn't watch The Irishman by Martin Scorsese because the deepfake technology was so distracting to me, and that was a big budget film with a great director, but the technology just isn't there yet to work for me personally. And I've seen other films since then, or TV shows where they try to do that deepfake, like to show like a younger version of the same actor, and it's just it's glaringly bad. Like what else? They used it in Boardwalk Empire.
Star Wars.
The
Star Wars movies with
that might be
Princess Leia.
Might be some of the best I've seen is the Star Wars. But I was thinking of Boardwalk Empire, where they tried to do a young Steve Buscemi, and it's I think it's called The Uncanny Valley, where it's just disturbing. Because it doesn't look like Steve Buscemi. It looks like it's just freaky. But I was gonna say, do you think that there's military grade deepfake tech that's already been developed that could be used convincingly? That's better than what Hollywood has access to.
I do, and that's part of what drives this novel. So I do think it's possible that it's there. It's been years since they released some of the algorithms that are driving the most popular easy personas, and it's getting harder and harder and harder all the time to detect deep fakes that are available to the general public. So when I think about what the military likely has, it's a little bit scary.
I mean, yeah, what is their budget this year? Was 700 billion. They could probably develop some good deep fake.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's just our military, and who knows what they've got in China, Russia, everywhere.
Right.
All right, well, guys, be careful.
Exactly.
Be careful the next time you think that you're watching the president, because it could totally just be an AI.
Right. Yeah. You think that the one with Tom Cruise is good. Yeah. What could they show the president doing, or the vice president doing, or yeah. In the case of our story, the bad guys, the Sons of Adam, they've been developing a deep fake that they plan to use and spur a civil war.
Yeah, and they're a singly purposed paramilitary group that
Right.
This is so, and it's it's been their goal for centuries to have this kind of tech. And so, yeah, who knows? I mean, then who, like you're, all the allies, like they're allied in your book, they're allied with the Catholic Church, they're allied with the mafia. There's
Yeah.
I did want to ask, you just asked me this question, and I know that you answered it yourself just to a certain extent. Maybe this is, but maybe thinking just a little bit outside of just, things we were saying, we're like, hey, try to be savvy, try to be critical. But other than that, maybe like on a grander scale, maybe, maybe even going into tech. I don't know if you've thought that much about that, or if it's even, on the table with anyone right now. But what do you think are some other possible countermeasures that could combat AI generated journalism and social media, like we were saying before, but maybe things that could be more I almost want to, I don't want to say foolproof, but more than just me going like, I think this is a bot, or I think this is an AI generated story.
Yeah. So what's kind of interesting is that technology kind of it keeps up with itself, right? So on the bad side, you've got all these bad actors that are creating these very suspicious deepfake videos. On the good side, you've got good guys that are developing technology to identify the deepfakes, and so there's telltale signs in some of the deepfake videos. I don't remember exactly what they all are, but there's things that you can look for, and so they've developed artificial intelligence to look at other artificial intelligence to see if is it perfect, or is there a gap in the teeth in one picture but not in another frame? Are the pixels all lined up? So they're developing ways. Unfortunately, it's usually the good guys are half a step behind the bad guys.
Yeah.
But there is technology that's being developed, at least for the videos. Just outright false stories and things like that. Facts, unfortunately, are being debated. Science is being debated. So when you've got that kind of culture that's attacking things that we've all commonly agreed on, you think about the flat Earth movement and how much traction that got.
Yeah.
I write about conspiracies, right? The Cleopatra's Vendetta is it's like the ultimate conspiracy. I love conspiracies, but they're fun fictionally. The flat Earth. Okay, so to believe that, you've got to suspend hundreds of years of scientific understanding. You've got to believe that, all of the NASA scientists, as they send stuff up into space that look back onto the planet, you have to believe all that stuff isn't true. So you really have to kind of warp your mind around things and think that all that is some sort of conspiracy, and for what purpose, right? So it just kind of fascinates me.
I do know the purpose.
What's the purpose of the flat Earth movement?
The flat Earth movement, if you pull the thread, I think we've discussed this on this podcast several times. It is an anti-Semitic. The root of it is anti-Semitism. It's like anti-Zionist. It's all about the conspiracy of the Jewish Zionists trying to control the world. This is actually, if you can trace it all back to the first guy who wrote the book about flat Earth, and he was a neo-Nazi.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like with most of these really fucking idiotic conspiracy theories, hollow moon, flat Earth, all this stuff, that all practically every single one, if you just start tugging on the thread and unravel it and find where it started, it always starts with anti-Semitism. It's baffling. But like, I just feel like the dumbest ones, because that's the thing, is like you said, you write conspiracies, but you write like fun, intriguing, well thought out, well researched conspiracies that are meant to be read as a novel. And I feel like the ones that these people are falling for online, like QAnon, it's written by the most unimaginative assholes. You know what I mean? Like, we've got lizard vampires, and it's and the things don't match up. They can't even keep their conspiracy straight in their own narrative.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So interesting Nazi agenda behind that.
Well, it's not so much. I mean, like, I guess, I use the word. I don't want to use the word Nazi so flagrantly because it's being used. It's being flung around by everyone right now.
Overused.
But what I mean is, like, someone like Kanye West right now. He is out here. He's going DEFCON 3 on the Jews and all this shit. It's because I don't know if he's just doing it to be for attention or if he believes it. But
yeah,
he's drawing it all from these very popular conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
The Jew mafia, the Zionists. It's all, so
silly rabbit.
What you gonna do? Hey, I had a question. This is straight from the book. The Sons of Adam. They all get a tattoo. It's an apple and a snake. Can you explain that tattoo to me? Like, just does it have its own mythos? Does it have its own? Is there more to it than it's just a gang tattoo?
Yeah, there is. So the how can I explain it without giving away too many spoilers?
I had a feeling that might be a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is there's spoilers there, but they're related to. So the Sons of Adam is a very, very, very old organization, right? Old even in Cleopatra's time, and so they've got their agenda, and we find out kind of at the very tail end where this agenda came from. But it's there is I will say that there is a relationship with the Adam and Eve creation story.
Yeah.
So you got the apple and the snake there. So there is a tie-in there. But I think if I give away any more, it would spoil the story.
Okay, I will not push it any further. I won't push it any further.
Yeah.
You know what, guys?
Yeah, we want to leave some surprise for the readers.
If you want to know what this tattoo is all about, which I don't even know yet because of those awful women on the plane who wouldn't stop drinking and getting louder and louder and louder. Now, I don't know what the damn tattoo's about, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out tonight.
Okay.
Avanti, I have to tell you something.
You can text me. All right. Yeah. Tell me.
We are getting dangerously close to the lightning round. Now, I don't know if you know how the lightning round works.
I'm guessing it's rapid fire questions.
It generally is, but you know what? It morphs, and sometimes somebody gets something that's never been on before. You happen to be one of the lucky ones who your lightning round is never been done on this podcast before, as far as I know.
Awesome.
I didn't even write this lightning round, so I don't know what this is. Although I know that it's a Mad Lib. This was written by co-producer Colleen. It's called The Map, a Mad Lib story by co-producer Colleen. All I told her was that I had a guest on who writes mystery thrillers. I think I might have mentioned a little bit of my Indiana Jones thing. Anyway,
yep.
This is the game section of the podcast. I have a feeling you're going to win. Are you ready to play?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right. First thing. Adjective.
Yellow.
Okay. I promise this won't be hard. A woman's name.
Cleopatra.
Oh, I hope that makes this extra awesome. Company.
CIA. The company.
This is getting the company. Forget Apple, man. CIA. Okay. This is just same name as before, so I just write in Cleopatra again. Cleopatra. Sorry, I have to write this or else I'll never be able to get through it. Plural noun.
Assassins.
Assassins. ASSASSIN. For anyone that doesn't know, the antonym for assassin is dick out. Okay. Famous document.
The Bible.
Bible. This is getting really. There's some intrigue. I'm really worried what the story might end up being. Adjective.
Gray.
Gray. Plural noun.
Men.
Men. Hell yeah. Really good at picking one that doesn't have an S on the end. Another plural noun. I promise we're getting close.
Knives.
Knives.
Can you see why I write thrillers?
Yes. Oh my god. Okay. Place. This is much longer than I thought it was going to be.
Athens.
Athens. By the way, you're kicking ass at this lightning round, and I really appreciate your patience.
It's fun.
Mythical creature.
Medusa.
Medusa. I love her. All right. Celebrity.
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. Wonder Woman. Okay. Action movie.
Indiana Jones.
All right. Indiana Jones. And this is the same name as before, so that's Gal Gadot. There's only 3 left, I promise. Noun.
Jump rope.
Jump rope. And place.
Bari, Italy.
All right. I am much more familiar with that location thanks to you. Someday I hope to go there and not get roofied. Spoiler alert. Shit.
Oh, you're a guy. Oh yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, you're right. That's not entirely true.
True.
Charitable organization. That's the last one.
The Nature Conservancy.
Nature Conservancy. All right. This is a Mad Lib co-written by Avanti Centrae and co-producer Colleen. Guys, this might be the next big Hollywood blockbuster of the summer. Who knows?
The next New York Times best-selling story.
Let's see what we made. The map. Once upon a time, there was a yellow lady named Cleopatra who had an insatiable taste for adventure. But she was sad because even though she made tons of money, she hated her job at the CIA. One day, Cleopatra was reading a book about assassins and discovered an ancient tale about a map on the other side of the Bible. She immediately went to her gray boss and said, "I quit." She packed her bags full of men and knives and hopped on a plane to Athens. This sounds fun. This sounds like a fun story.
Does.
There she encountered many challenges, such as a fierce battle with a Medusa. That would be a fierce battle. Fortunately, she's a woman, so I guess it wouldn't be that hard because she only turns men to stone, right? Am I wrong?
Right.
Okay.
I don't know.
A hilarious will they, won't they encounter with Gal Gadot. Hell yeah, hubba hubba. And physical obstacles rivaling those in Indiana Jones. But ultimately, Gal Gadot was successful in following the map. Oh, wait. Cleopatra was successful in following the map to discover the golden jump rope, the long-lost treasure of Bari, Italy. She sold it for $1 billion on eBay and donated half the money to the Nature Conservancy. But more important were the friendships she made along the way. The end. What a story. Thanks for co-writing that story, Avanti.
What a story. Yeah. For my next, my next Striker volume #2 for the golden jump rope.
I wonder if
I think it'd be a great satire.
Yeah, the golden jump rope. Will they, won't they? Cleopatra, Gal Gadot, and a fight with Medusa. This is gnarly. Oh, and a suitcase full of men and knives.
Yeah. Or are they Mennonite knives?
Ooh. The options are limitless. The limits are as far as your imagination will go. Avanti, I have one last question to ask you. It's the most important question of the day. Where can people find you? Where can they check out your books, all that stuff, everything, all the good stuff to find Avanti Centrae?
Yeah, the books are available wherever books are sold. They can ask for them at their local library and get the librarian to buy it. They can ask for it at their local bookstore and have the bookstore order it up. Of course, they're available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online, Google, Apple. For more information, vanops.net is shorter than avanticentrae.com. So they can head over to vanops.net. They can watch trailers. They can sign up for my newsletter. If they sign up for my newsletter, they get the first 6 chapters of my debut novel, the 3-time award-winning Vanops: The Lost Power story. So yeah, head over to vanops.net and check it out.
Hell yeah. Avanti, it's been absolutely a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for putting up with me being kind of a silly guy. But anyway,
the pleasure was mine, Doug.
I can't wait to finish reading your book.
Thank you.
And anyway, thank you.
Yeah, let me know what you think when you get her done.
I will.